What is about to happen will shock you. Hey everybody, you're watching Bull Boom Bear Bust, back with another dose, BX4, another dose of economic reality. We've got a lot of hopium out there right now, a lot of optimism. Nothing wrong with optimism, nothing wrong with hopium, as long as it's based on reality. That's why we need to get into economic reality, folks. A lot of people thinking that inflation is going to come down, which is not good. If inflation comes down, it's not good because it just means prices are going up just more slowly than previously they were going up. What we need is deflation. What we're being told, though, is we're going to see a massive deflation. That's the word that most of those empowered don't want to use because that crashes the illusion of economic growth. Because economic growth, remember, is gauged on how much debt you take out, how much money you spend, and mostly consumer spending. About 70% is consumer spending. So when economic growth increases, we know it's because there's just more debt being accumulated in the background, both by the government and by you and I, consumers, right? But there's a lot of promises out there being put out there, being promised, a lot of good things being promised by the next administration. Prices are going to come down. The cost of living is going to come down. I think I even heard a quote that the cost of energy is going to be cut in half. If we start pumping more oil, maybe. But overall, let's take a look at the big picture here. And just a couple of headlines here. Inflation may not be tamed. How commodities can protect your portfolio. This is out of Barron's. Now, do we just look at a headline and say, yep, inflation's not going to be tamed? They're right. No, but we do use a little bit of common sense and our memories, all right? And you don't even have to have a very good memory. Let's go back just 4 to 8 years ago when we had promises that tariffs were going to make everybody rich and make the cost of everything come down. Did that happen? No, prices went up. Not as bad as they did the last 4 years, but prices still went up. There was still inflation. Does anyone remember that? Of course, they blamed it. They had a scapegoat. They said, well, it's China's fault. It's this sickness thing. If it wasn't for that, everything would have been perfect. We would have brought prices down. The cost of living would have came down. Home prices would have been cut in half. Gas prices would have been cut in half. Folks, that's what they want you to believe. And you think it's going to play out differently this time? What's the new solution? Which is actually not new because they tried this before. They're saying tariffs are going to be one of the key ingredients to lowering the cost of living, aka deflation. Folks, do you believe that's true? If you believe that's true, please let me know down in comments. Did you forget about what happened just a few years ago? Have you lost your memory? I hope not, because it's not going to happen, folks. And guess what? They'll probably find a new scapegoat. Maybe they'll blame it on the other party. They're going to say it's the left's fault. Which way am I pointing? Left, right? They're going to say it's the left's fault. Folks, that's the point of this whole left versus right thing we've got going on here, right? These parties, they blame the other side, so when things don't go correctly, they can just blame the other side. Why do you think they need two parties? That way you always have hope that switching to the other party is going to fix the problem. And here we are again, folks. Everybody thinks it's going to fix the problems, and I'm afraid to say this, but people are in for a big boatload of disappointment. I hate to be doom and gloom, but we just have to look at facts and, again, use your memories. You remember what happened just a few years ago. Did prices come down? No. Was it better than the last 4 years? Obviously, yes. Did prices come down? No. So what if the same thing happens again? Prices don't come down. Oh, they went up more slowly. Okay. So instead of $1 million homes in California, they're only going to go up to 1,500,000. No, they're only going to go up to 1.5 million instead of 2 million. I mean, you see what I'm saying here? It's going to get worse. But they're going to say this is a victory because it's less worse than it would have been if we would have did A, B, and C. So we're doing E, F, and G, but it's better because we didn't do A, B, and C. So it would have been much worse under those other people. You know what I'm saying here? So folks, let me know if I'm onto something. Am I full of nonsense? Does this not make any sense to you? Nonsense. Doesn't make sense. Let me know what you think about this down in comments, please. Next, take a look at this, folks. Inflation dishes up high costs this Thanksgiving. Dishes, get it? Ha ha ha. The dish. Typical American will spend 19% more this year on Thanksgiving than they did in 2023. We're almost up 20% in just a year. Wow, folks. Are you going to be buying a big meal for Thanksgiving? I remember one year I went to a fast food place and got a turkey sandwich because I felt like I had to have turkey. It was one of those Subway places, Jersey Mike's. Went and got a Subway sandwich on Thanksgiving. Was it the day after? No, it was on Thanksgiving. I think they were open. And I felt like I needed to celebrate, so I went and got a turkey sub. It was like $7 back then. The point is, are you going to be spending money on a big meal, or are you cutting back? Well, a lot of people aren't cutting back this holiday season because guess what? There's going to be record holiday travel, even with record levels of debt. Here we go again, another year, another record holiday travel. How is this possible? People have so much debt. How can they do this? Folks, they're going further into debt. People have to be able to go further into debt. Otherwise, the economy crashes. Why do you think the banks need to have no restrictions? And that's something else that the new administration's talking about. More deregulation. More deregulation. So the banks are going to be even more loose with their money. More easy money, more easy lending, probably more down payment assistance programs. We already have 2,000 plus down payment assistance programs across the U.S. I can't imagine more. But how else can they keep the housing market from imploding? You're also going to have a lot more investors coming in and buying homes. There's already a lot now. 1 in 2 homes in California right now are owned by investors, meaning only half the people own their homes here in California. And it's probably going to get worse. The home ownership rate's going to continue to drop, but prices will continue to rise. So what they'll say is, oh, look at all the homeowners. They're getting rich. Look at all this home equity. In the meantime, it's mega companies and the billionaires coming in and buying more and more homes. All right, now, still on the topic of the high cost of food and the rising cost of food, California farm makes massive organic carrot recall after one person passes away, multiple infected with E. coli. At least 39 others have reported infections. Why does it have to be the organic food, folks? Organic food's already so expensive. It's got to be the organic carrots. Folks, going to make things more expensive, right? All the homes destroyed across the coast because of these hurricanes going to make cost of materials more expensive. There's going to be labor shortages, lack of construction workers. Now, a lot of the construction workers are going to leave the country, so the cost of labor and wages is probably going to go up higher. So it's going to make the cost of rebuilding a home much higher. And speaking of homes, we have California insurance companies looking to do the unthinkable. California homeowners could face property insurance hikes under new rules. New rules allow insurers to use what they call complex algorithms, what consumer advocates call secret black box models, to set prices. Now, in each state in the United States, there's an insurance commission, and what they're supposed to do, I want to highlight the word they're supposed to do, they're supposed to protect consumers against price gouging and insurance companies charging rates that are too high. So what insurance companies have to do, they have to submit all their expenses and the claims that they paid in each state, and even zip code, I believe, to justify raising their rates. And the insurance commission usually, most of the time, lets the companies do it. If not, sometimes the company will just pull out of the state, like Florida. They have some restrictions as far as how high prices can be in California as well. And because of that, a lot of insurance companies just pulled out of the state. So it gave people fewer options. So what they were trying to do to help people prevent prices from going up and prevent what they call price gouging, what they did actually made things worse because it made the people have less choice. The population of that state, those states, had less of a choice because companies just pulled out of the state. So it basically backfired. But it's going to get even worse here in California. So what they're saying here, this black box or this algorithm that projects climate risk and the risk of fire, the risk of something that can destroy a home, a peril, a hurricane, tornado. They're going to say, well, our algorithm says we need to charge this. In other words, they can set whatever price they want. They could just say, oh, the algorithm said this. Now we have to set this price. Now, the question is, will the insurance commissions in all these states say, yep, go ahead. And it could get a lot worse, folks. So the cost of home ownership, at least in California and some other states I could think of here with these disasters, it's going to get a lot worse. And I've got some notes here. This will put California regulators in a very tough position. They can go ahead and let insurance companies raise rates, which will then put more pressure on people to leave the state, or they can refuse to raise rates and let insurers leave the state, like we've already seen in many states. Californians without any insurers in the area can still purchase home insurance through the FAIR, F-A-I-R, state insurer of last resort. But guess who's going to pay for that? The taxpayers. They're going to try to raise people's taxes to pay for that, folks. When the state's paying for something, guess who's paying for it? The people that are working. But high rates and limited property value coverage mean it's not a great option. Things are looking worse and worse for California, but it's not just in California, folks. Remember, California is spreading to the rest of the country. Yes, there's still some low-cost places to live, but look at the tornado states. They're going to drastically raise their insurance rates. Tennessee, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma. I think those are kind of the big tornado alley states, right? Northern Texas as well. But the strange weather patterns are actually going in different parts of the country, right? There's fires where we never thought we'd see fires. There's hurricanes and floods where we never thought we'd see hurricanes and floods, folks. It's wild. And is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Please let me know down in the comments. I don't want to be doom and gloom. So please, I'm begging you, convince me that I'm wrong about this or any of this that we talk about here down in comments. I'll be reading your comment. But folks, it's not all bad news. In fact, the economy right now, it's breaking records. Let me read this to you here. Nearly 40% of cars financed since 2022 are underwater. We're breaking records, folks. Wait, that's not a good record to break, is it? 40% of cars financed since 2022 are underwater. My bad. The day of reckoning has arrived for millions of Americans who purchased vehicles during the auto boom following the health crisis. Many are now finding themselves trapped underwater, folks. 40%. I'd give it maybe 6 months and then half the loans will be underwater. Wow, this is crazy, folks. And you know what's going to happen, right? The more people that are underwater in their loan, the more they're going to be likely just to hand the keys back to the lender when something breaks down. Think about it. If you have a transmission that goes out, an engine that goes out, maybe even a $400 brake job, and then you look at your payments, you look at what the car's worth, and you start asking yourself, but is it even worth it to keep this vehicle? And they'll let it go back to the lender. Look at the delinquency rate right now. Let me move myself out of the way here. And we see this is the 60-day plus delinquency rate. And we see we're spiking once again just in the past few years. It went down briefly in 2020 because people got all those stimmy checks. Remember that? And look how it actually helped temporarily. But look, we're just continuing the same trend that we started before 2020 and back on this upward trajectory. And in fact, if you look back to the financial crisis down here, 2007, 8, 9, we're way above where we were back then. Even at the midst or at the height of the financial crisis, it was only 5% of auto loans were 60-plus day delinquent. Now, we spiked a little while back up to almost 6.25%. Dipped down a little bit, looks like, but now we're headed back up in the upward direction, folks. All right, folks, let's talk about a big indicator of what's happening with the economy, and that's layoffs. And actually, a few media companies are undergoing some pretty big layoffs. Look at this. AP, that's Associated Press, cuts 8% of staff in layoffs. I think a lot of these news outlets pretending that everything is wonderful and fine with the economy, reporting things like economic growth is good, everything's fine, the economy's strong, basically parroting what the central bank is out there trying to convince everybody. People aren't buying it anymore, right? Is it me? Am I right on that? I don't think people are buying it anymore. It's not just this show. I have a small audience. Thank you for those that are here, by the way. But even the average person that doesn't follow the economic news, of course, I've been following this stuff for years. I'm an economic news geek. But even people that aren't really following this and digging in are just looking around and they're saying, hey, this is a bunch of and they're not buying it anymore. So of course, less people looking at this at these media sites, and they're just looking around and maybe watching YouTube more, maybe just looking at videos that people are putting out, expressing what they're seeing. And I see it from you all the time. I see it from other people out there talking about just the cost of living. It's outrageous. So what can we do, folks? Well, go back to the beginning of the video. Do you think inflation's really going to come down? Or do you think, I shouldn't say that. I've got to follow my own rules here. Inflation coming down is not going to help. Do you think we're going to see deflation and a lower cost of living? If we do, at what cost will it be? Remember, a lot of times when there's deflation, it's because of a massive crisis and a lot of job losses, and the fallout and the pain sometimes is actually worse than the relief you get with the lower cost of living when you see a deflationary correction or even a crash or a collapse. They all start with the letter C. Correction, crash, collapse. Interesting. Let me know what you think about that, folks. But here's what I see happening. I see them blaming a crisis for what's going to happen. How can we make money on this? How can we better position ourselves? I'm doing what a lot of people are doing that actually have a little money to invest. I have a little money to invest, not a lot. So what I'm going to do is have cash available for the correction, for the crash, right? For the inevitable downturn. And again, I think something's going to happen. They're going to blame it on A, they're going to blame it on B, they're going to blame it on C, all the above, or they're going to blame it on the other side. Look at these people over there. They didn't pass our bill. Otherwise, it would have worked. The cost of living is going up. It's their fault. So then what happens in 4 years? Oh, we're going to get this other party to run things. They're going to fix everything, folks. Back and forth, back and forth. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, please let me know where I'm wrong. Don't just say I'm wrong. Let me know what exactly is going to actually make things cheaper without there being some sort of crisis, collapse, correction, with other, who knows what's going to cause it, right? The black swan, like we always talk about. Where's the black swan? Black swans are flying around. Something's going to happen, and maybe they'll even make something happen to cover up their failures. Folks, take a look at this. Fed's supervision report takes note of rising card delinquencies. And remember, usually in a rising delinquency environment, we just talked about the car loans, and now we got the credit cards. Usually in this type of environment, banks are pulling back. Banks typically become very restrictive lending out money in this situation with rising delinquencies. They're not doing that this time, folks. It's deregulation, and they're about to deregulate things even more. So more people with banged up credit scores and hardly any money in savings, they'll be able to borrow more money. And you have to ask, well, how long can they maintain all this debt? How long can they maintain their payments? Right? So if credit transfers are available, people can maintain this for a very, very long time. And remember, they're doing debt forgiveness. Look at this. Speaking of debt forgiveness, student loan borrowers feeling the squeeze from payments following nearly a 4-year pause. So what good was the 4-year pause? It was supposed to get people caught back up and get people a chance to get back to work following the health crisis. Of course, that should have only taken a year or two, but now 4 years, and they're trying to resume the loans, and a lot of them can't do it. Already feeling the squeeze. She felt like the health crisis pause on student loan payments gave her some much needed financial breathing room for nearly 4 years. But guess what? These people are back to where they were. So the trillions and trillions of dollars that they threw at the problem didn't fix anything. It might have made things feel a little bit better temporarily for a few years, not having to make payments is one example. These people are back where they started. So that's why they're talking about forgiveness, folks. People are in too deep. People are in too far over their heads. Nearly 40% of car loans underwater. Delinquencies rising everywhere you look. How much further do we have, folks, right? We try to put timing on things. Trying to guess timing isn't an easy thing to do. Look at all the quote-unquote experts that predicted this thing was going to collapse years ago. Look at Harry Dent. He said by the end of 2024, we're going to see a massive collapse. I think I did that video 2, maybe 3 days ago. And he's been in the game for decades, folks, and others like him have been in the game for decades. Still, no one can predict what's going to happen, because typically when something does happen to change the direction of the inflationary economy, it's typically something that nobody suspected or that nobody saw coming. That's why it's something you have to prepare for. All right. So that's how we profit, folks. We're ready for that. We have cash, but you're still invested. If you're like me, you're still invested. You're still making money. If stocks go up, you're still going to make some money. You just don't have as much in stocks because you want to prepare for the inevitable crisis. And what's it going to be? Your guess is as good as mine. Again, please let me know down in comments. Thanks everybody for watching. As always, keep stacking. You know what I'm stacking. Are you stacking? I'm stacking. Big love. Bye. Bye for now. Peace.